When you think of a water shortage, you usually don't think of Wisconsin, but in the last few years, some parts of our area are seeing dramatically lower lake levels. Some people are concerned about the impact it could have on property values and tourism. Fox 11 Investigates. Robert Hornacek joins us with a preview of his latest report. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Rachel. Imagine buying a beautiful lakefront property and then watching that lake level continue to drop and drop. That's been happening in some parts of central Wisconsin for more than a decade. When Dan Trudell purchased this property on Huron Lake in Waushara County back in 1988, it was the perfect lakefront getaway.
The water was such the kids could swing high and jump and land in the water.
Now, not so much.
It is very disturbing that we just continually see a decline in the water level.
Just to give you an idea of how much the water levels have changed here at Huron Lake, where I'm standing right now, about 10 or 15 years ago, I would have been in the water. But today, the water is about 20 or 30 feet away. It's not just property owners at one lake being affected. Some are concerned that lower lake levels could mean fewer tourists.
We're going to see a lot more Wisconsin look just like this.
George Kraft is a groundwater expert from UW-Stevens Point. He's been looking into the disappearing lakes in central Wisconsin for more than a decade.
Frankly, I was dubious. I thought, well, part of a normal cycle of ups and downs.
But that was then. After years of research, he says all of the signs kept pointing to one thing: high-capacity wells used for irrigation.
As hydrologists, we know whenever you pump groundwater, water levels go down someplace.
There's plenty of pumping going on in the central part of the state. The region, which is known as the Central Sands, is home to more than 2,000 high-capacity irrigation wells. That's nearly half of all the irrigation wells in the state. Trudell is convinced the pumping is causing lakes like his to go down.
When you pump this water out of the ground, there isn't a water ferry down there that's generating more water.
But people doing the pumping say it's not that simple. Nick Summers owns Plover River Farms, a third-generation vegetable farm near Stevens Point. His 3,000-acre farm has 28 high-capacity wells.
We need the water. If we didn't have irrigation, I wouldn't be around. Vegetables wouldn't be around.
Summers says thanks in large part to advances in technology, he uses less water today than he did 40 years ago.
We are very scientific about our water use.
Now, there are some other factors affecting lake levels, things like evaporation, even climate change, and some believe it's all part of a cycle. But the DNR says it considers irrigation to be one of the main factors affecting lake levels in that area. And coming up tonight on Fox 11 News at 5 and 9, we'll hear from the DNR about what it's doing on the issue, and we'll also hear from the Potato Growers Association. That organization believes pumping is only having a minimal impact.
So how much water are we talking about?
Well, it's a lot of water in that area. In fact, it's tens of billions of gallons of water every year that's being pumped out of the ground to water crops. And in central Wisconsin, that's mostly for potatoes and corn. And this is the time of year when they're doing a lot of pumping, because this is the time of year where the crops are really growing. Now, some farmers say that the aquifer underground has a great ability to kind of refill itself and recharge itself over the rest of the year. But others say that's just not enough to make up for all of the pumping that's being done.
So what would they, the property owners, like to see happen?
Well, one of the main things they want to see happen is the state to manage the groundwater, really in that area specifically, but also in other parts of the state. They really want to see some limits put on the amount of water that can be pumped from the ground. So advocates for that say it's worked in other states, but farmers and business groups, they're not so sure. They say they want the ability to use the water as they need it, and as the farmer said in the story, they're very scientific about how they use it. They use less than they did 40 years ago, he said, on his farm. Ultimately, it's going to be a question for the legislature.
Interesting. We'll look for your full report tonight at 5 and 9. Thanks, Robert.